So, okay. Okay. So, students, I am Indu Singh, PGT Biology. So, we'll be discussing here genetics, that is the pattern of inheritance. Hopefully, you are familiar with genetics basics, that is the transmission of characteristics from parents to offspring, right? Genetics is basically the study of heredity and variation. So here we have two concepts, heredity and variation. So by heredity we mean transmission of characteristics. We already know that there are certain traits, certain characteristics we receive from our parents, from one parent, that is father, and certain characteristics from mother, right? So this is what is the transmission of characteristic from one generation to the other generation. So it is transmission of characteristic from parents to offsprings. And then what is variation? During the transmission of characteristic, we see certain traits may even differ from our parents. So that variation or that difference that we receive in the next generation is what is variation. Variation could be due to genetic reasons, could be behavioral, and could also be due to certain physical reasons. So variation is basically the changes that are transmitted from one generation to another. Right, so we are going to discuss here basically the rules and regulations of heredity. Hopefully you are familiar with the father of genetics, that is Gregor Mendel, who had for the first time Gregor Johann Mendel. I am writing here Gregor J. Mendel. Why he had been designated as father of genetics? Because he was the first person to study about the transmission of traits in pea plant. Pea plant, that is Pisum sativum. So he had studied this heredity in pea plant. History of Mendel is that Mendel was a very a poor person who did not had such economical status that he could spend in big labs. So he was basically working uh, in a church, and he worked on in a small field, right, where he found pea. Why? Pea was a wild variety, wild plant, so it was easy for him to work with pea plant. What were the reasons he had chosen pea plant? Pea plant, that is scientific name of pea plant is Pisum sativum. He chose pea plant for the reason because it was an annual plant. Annual plant, that means the plant which is going to give the results, I mean grow vegetatively, the entire root, stem, leaf, all the vegetative growth will take place in 1 year, within 1 year, and then reproductive development, that is development of flowers and seeds, also will be completed within the same span, 1 year. So that is how, since he could yield quick results with pea, it was an annual plant, so he could yield quick results and he could analyze the results of P. Right. And then what was another reason, since pea plant was a bisexual plant? Bisexual plant, you may be knowing that the plant which has got both the male and the female whorls or the gametophyte in the same flower. Right. Then since pea plant also was economical, he didn't need to spend too much of money to arrange pea plant, right? That was one reason, right? And then pea plant had variable traits. Variable trait means in the same plant many characters had contrasting traits. Contrasting traits means, for example, he had visualized 7 contrasting features in pea plant. That was plant height. It was available in both tall and dwarf varieties. Right. Then it had got contrasting flowers, flower color. It had 2 contrasting varieties of flower color, purple and white. Right. Then it had a seed shape, round and wrinkled. Right. Then seed color, contrasting seed colors were also available in the same plant. So since Mendel could find out contrasting traits in so many characteristics, traits are generally the variable form of characteristic or the alternative form of characteristic. So for seed color it was yellow and seed color was yellow and white. Then flower position. Flower position, hopefully you may be familiar. Some flowers may be terminal, which are born on the main axis, end of the main axis, or some may be present in the axil. Axil means if this is an angle, so the flower may be either born here or the flower may be terminal. So flower position would be axillary or terminal. Right. Then you see here flower color, then seed shape, plant height, first trait. Second trait, flower color, then seed shape, then seed color, then flower position. Right. So likewise, Mendel had chosen 7 contrasting traits. Right. He could identify these 7 contrasting traits to verify his experimental results and deduce the laws of inheritance. He had worked on all these characteristics in the same plant, right, and had deduced laws of inheritance. We will talk about laws of inheritance. Now, how did he work with? To study how traits are transmitted from one generation to the other generation, he had first taken one characteristic at a time. So here we will also choose one characteristic, right? For example, monohybrid cross. What was this cross? This cross was meant for studying the inheritance pattern of one trait at a time. one characteristic. Let us say Mendel had chosen plant height as the characteristic. So the two contrasting forms of plant height were the tall plant and dwarf plant. Now to see which of the two contrasting traits are going to be expressed in the next generation, he had first chosen the pure line or the pure form of these two traits. Now what are pure form? Also called as pure line. Pure line means when the same characteristic is self-crossed. Self-crossing, hopefully you may be familiar, that is first self-pollinating the same flower, that is transfer of the pollen in the same flower to the stigma of the same flower. So that is self-pollination, right? And self-pollination will lead to fertilization. So self-pollination and self-fertilization will lead to production of the same trait. So he repeated this for 3 to 4 successive generations, self-crossing the same plant for 3 to 4 generations had made him achieve this particular trait, as a result of which the trait becomes stabilized. So such a stable trait is what is called as the pure line, right? Because he wanted to confirm the results as to which of the trait is being expressed and why it is being expressed in every repeated generation and what is happening to the other trait. He had chosen pure lines of both tall and dwarf. So let us begin with the parental generation to identify the results of this monohybrid cross. Parental generation was pure tall. So here we refer the gene expression which is known as the genotype, and the physical expression which is known as the phenotype. So tall is the phenotype and this capital T, it is the genotype. Now since both the genes or the alleles are the same, that means this is homozygous or pure tall. Right, in the same manner for dwarf variety also, pure dwarf variety or homozygous dwarf. This is homozygous tall and this is homozygous dwarf. Right. So after crossing the parental generation, that means pure tall with pure dwarf, in the next generation which he called as the first filial generation or F1 generation. The result which he got was this hybrid tall in F1 generation. So it was 100% hybrid tall. Right. Now what he did with the F1 generation, to see here, since only one of the phenotype, one physical trait, that is the tall, is being expressed in the F1 generation and the dwarf is missing. So where did the dwarf go? Will the dwarf form appear again? So to identify whether the dwarf will appear or not appear, right, Mendel had again self-crossed the F1 generation. Self-crossed again means self-pollination and fertilization, right? So to deduce the result, how do we deduce it? We find this Punnett square method, which gives us the probability of the combinations, right? Gamete formation is capital T, small t, capital T, small t for both, because both have got the same genotype. One can be, this can be the female gametophyte and this can be the male gamete, right? So we see that now this gamete formation on fertilization will give us capital T, if this is crossed with this, then capital T, small t, and small t, small t. Now this, the second generation result, F2 or the second filial generation, was capital T, one part, then capital T, small t. We already know that capital T is homozygous tall or pure tall. And now capital T, small t, this is also tall phenotype. This was also tall phenotype. And small t was dwarf phenotype. Now we see we are getting 3 part tall and 1 part dwarf. So 3 part tall is the phenotypic ratio and 1 part dwarf is the phenotype for the other form. So 3 part tall, 1 part dwarf is the phenotypic ratio. Now what about the genotypic ratio? We see we are getting only 1 part pure tall. Okay. This is this 3:1 is the phenotypic ratio. Now, if we see the genotype, then pure tall is only 1 part, hybrid tall is 2 part, and pure dwarf is only 1 part. So this 1:2:1 that he obtained was the genotypic ratio. Right. So what do we notice here? That the dwarf part is again appearing in the F2 generation. The dwarf form reappeared in F2 generation. It didn't disappear, right? While the contemporary scientists of the time of Mendel, they were also talking about blending inheritance. That means the traits could blend and give a new variable form, right? Even though if we see in the F1 generation is giving us this hybrid tall genotype. But what do we see? That the small t allele or the small t gene, it appears again in the next generation. That means it is not losing its identity, right? So now on the basis of this result, Mendel had deduced the law of dominance. On the basis of this observation, Mendel deduced that in the contrasting pair of traits, right, law of dominance. Mendel deduced that in a pair of contrasting trait, one form or one factor, actually at that Mendel's time, the idea of gene was not into being and nobody was knowing about gene or its existence. Even Mendel was not knowing about gene, but he used the term factor here. He said one form or factor which expresses itself is dominant, right? While the other which doesn't express means which is not expressing in every generation. See, in the parental generation, dwarf is there, but in F1 generation, we don't see dwarf. Again, in F2 generation, we see dwarf reappears. So this form of the trait or the contrasting form is not expressing itself in every successive generation. Although if we see tall here, tall is also there in parental generation, tall is also there in F1 generation, and then 3-part tall phenotype is also there in the F2 generation. So tall is repeatedly being expressed in every successive generation, while dwarf is not seen in every generation. So on the basis of this observation, he deduced that in the pair of contrasting trait, one form or one factor which expresses itself is dominant, while the other which doesn't express itself in every generation is recessive. And then he said that these factors, they occur in pair. As I already told that the factors are the genes only. The scientists later on after Mendel, they had discovered that these factors are the genes which Mendel was talking about. Right, so Mendel had already spoken about gene, but he was not knowing about the existence of gene, neither he could give any substantial proof to gene. So he had used the word factors. He said that the factors, they occur in pair, and out of the pair, right, one will express itself, the one which expresses is dominant, while the one which does not express itself is recessive, right? So that is how the law of dominance came into being. Now on the basis of this same monohybrid cross, we can also talk about the other law of Mendel, that is law of segregation. The word segregation means separation. So if we see here that during the time of gamete formation, if you are familiar with cell division, we already know that during meiosis, right, meiosis is the event which is responsible for gamete formation, and followed by meiosis is fertilization, which restores the gamete and forms the zygote, right? So here in law of segregation, Mendel said that out of the contrasting pair of alleles, or we can also use the word gamete here, right, the allele pairs segregate or separate at the time of gamete formation and again restore the pair during fertilization. We can find out from this Punnett square that during gamete formation, the allele pairs, the capital T, small t, they are separating out, and then with the fertilization event, again the allele pairs, they are coming together or reuniting, right? So on the basis of this, Mendel had deduced this law of segregation. This law of segregation is also a universal law. No matter we talk about the other pattern of inheritance or other crosses, dihybrid or trihybrid cross, dihybrid cross where inheritance pattern of two gene pairs are studied at the same time. Trihybrid cross means inheritance pattern of three gene pair are studied at the same time, right? So in every kind of cross, we see that this law, that is law of segregation or the formation of gamete, will definitely occur. So that is why this law of segregation is also called as a universal law. Right. Now, so with this monohybrid cross, Mendel was able to identify that the gene pairs or the factors, they are expressing itself. Out of the factors, one is always expressing, and while the other form is not expressing itself every time, right? So the one which is not expressing itself every time, it is called as recessive. The one which expresses itself is called as the dominant. Then he gave the law of segregation. The law of segregation says that during gamete formation, the allele pairs, they will separate, and then again the pair will restore during fertilization. Now after this, Mendel wanted to know how one characteristic inheritance can affect the expression of another characteristic. For example, say if seed color, is seed color expressing or affecting the expression of seed shape? So he wanted to see how the inheritance pattern of two genes express itself or appear in successive generation. So for this, he had devised this another cross that is known as the dihybrid cross. Right. So next we will take up the dihybrid cross. So this cross talks about inheritance pattern of two gene pairs at the same time. Two gene pairs which are responsible for two different characteristics. Now, as I've already told that, let us see whether seed shape affects the inheritance pattern of seed color. So Mendel had chosen round or wrinkled seed shape, right? And for seed color it was yellow and green. Right. Now here round is dominant trait, while wrinkled is recessive for, sorry, wait. Wrinkled, I am using small rr, the genotype. For yellow, yellow is dominant and at the same time green is recessive, right? So in the parental generation, Mendel had chosen round with yellow, round and yellow seeds, and he had crossed. Again, in the parental generation, always remember the pure form or the pure lines are taken. So they are, this round and yellow is homozygous. That means the same alleles are taken here, right? It is the pure form. So he had crossed it with the pure form of wrinkled and green. So this wrinkled and green is also pure form, that is homozygous. Right. Now see here, since we know that on the chromosome these genes are located, right? Now when during gamete formation these gene pairs will segregate, so it will be this way, RY, the gamete capital R capital Y for this particular, let us assume the female flower, and small r small y for the male flower, right? So the fertilization will result into the F1 generation. So F1 generation will be capital R small r here and capital Y small y, right? So again the pairing will be restored. We know, we have just now discussed that during gamete formation the allele pairs will segregate and then after fertilization they will again pair up. Now since these are the variable forms, so after fertilization we get the hybrid form. So this F1 generation is the hybrid form, but the phenotype that it gives will be of the dominant form. So that is round and yellow seed here. Since round and yellow I have already told are the dominant form, whichever trait expresses itself in the F1 generation is the dominant form, or we can say the dominant trait is the one which is actually appearing in every successive generation. We already discussed about it during monohybrid cross. We know that the dominant form will also be there in the parental trait, it will also be there in F1 trait, and again it will reappear in the F2 generation. Right. As we know that to yield the result of F2 generation, Mendel had self-crossed F1 generation. So self-cross means the same genotype will come here again with the other parent, right? Again round and yellow. Now what is the probable gamete formation here? We see that since this is heterozygous form or the hybrid form, round yellow, right? So if we see on the chromosome, how do they occur? Capital R, Y and small r and small y. So it will be capital R, Y, capital Y and small r, small y. This is the parental form. Now we already know that during meiosis, crossing over occurs, right? If you remember crossing over is when the segments, the gene segments will exchange. So in case if the gene segment exchange, that means capital Y may come here and small y may come here. Then what will happen? The combinations will change. We can get one combination small r capital Y and another combination capital R small y. So here we can also get two recombinant forms and two parental form of gametes, right? So four type of gametes we are going to get here from this heterozygous form, right? So I am writing here the gametes capital R capital Y, that is one parental form, then small r capital Y, capital R small y and small r small y. These are the four type of gametes that one parent will form. So since other parent has got the same genotype, so the other parent will also have the same type of gametes. So first we will draw the Punnett square here. Now since four type of gametes are being formed here from either of the parent, right? So how many combinations? Altogether we will get 16 type of combinations here, right? So this Punnett square, we know that it gives us, Punnett square is basically graphical presentation of the probability. Since these four type of gametes from one parent and four type of gamete from other parent is giving us the kind of probable genotypes or the phenotypes that will be formed in the next generation. So this is what we are going to evaluate through this Punnett square. Now this combination, if this will fertilize with this capital RR, capital YY, that is round and yellow combination, right? Now if this crosses with this capital R, small r, capital Y, again we know this is hybrid round and pure yellow, again round yellow. If this crosses with this, again capital R, capital Y, small y, again we get round yellow. So we see here the phenotype we are getting the same, but still if we see the genotypes are variable. Okay, different genetic combinations are being produced, but since the dominant is appearing with every form, so phenotype of the dominant will be there expressed. Again here capital R, small r, capital Y, small y, so we get round and yellow. Again here capital R, small r, capital Y, again round yellow, right? Now here see this small r, we get one part small r, and this small capital Y. So we already know that small r is for wrinkled. So we are getting one hybrid combination, wrinkled and yellow. This is a recombinant form, a new form which is different from the parental form. Again capital R, small y, again it is round, and again we get a hybrid form, round and green, right? Then capital R, small y. This is again a hybrid form, round and green, right? This is capital R, Y, small y, again round and yellow. Then this is again round yellow. So we are actually going to count the proportion here, how many phenotypic parts or what is the ratio of the dominant phenotype and what is the ratio or by what proportion are we getting the recessive phenotype, or by what proportion are we getting the recombinant forms, right? Then this is round and green. Now you can identify here, we have already got 3 recombinant round and green forms. This is again capital R, small y, small y. So this is round and green again. Right, then we are getting capital R, capital small r, and capital Y, small y. This is again round and yellow. And then small r, capital Y, it is wrinkled yellow. And this is capital R, small y again, round and green. Right, and this is small y, small y. Now this is this one part we are getting the pure recessive form, that is wrinkled and green. Right, now we will count the proportion or the ratio here. So we are actually getting by 9 part round and yellow phenotype, by 3 part we are getting wrinkled and yellow. This is the new recombinant form that we are getting in F2 generation. We didn't see wrinkled green either in F1 or in parental. Then again 3 part we are getting again another recombinant form, that is round and yellow, right? And 1 part we are getting wrinkled and green. This is the pure recessive form. We are getting only in 1 part out of 16. This is 9 out of 16. This is 3 out of 16. This is again 3 out of 16, and this is 1. That is how we get this 9:3:3:1 phenotypic ratio. This is the phenotypic ratio. Round, this is right, round and yellow. This is again round and yellow. Okay, so we see here that we are getting 9 part round yellow, 3 part wrinkled green, again 3 part round and yellow, and 1 part wrinkled and green. So we see that 3 part by 3 part is the recombinant form, and 9 part by 1 part is the parental form that we are getting in dihybrid ratio. So if we see, again the dominance of one trait is there, that is one form is again in a greater proportion. The dominant form is in 9 part and the recessive form is in 1 part, right? So again the dominant form proves its strength, right? Now, so with this dihybrid cross, we are able to deduce how the expression of one gene pair affects the expression of the other gene pair, right? In the same manner, not Mendel but other scientists had also studied inheritance pattern of 3 gene pairs at the same time, when we will be talking about polygenic inheritance, right? Polygenic inheritance means several genes are responsible, or more than one gene pair is responsible for the same characteristic. For example, in human beings, like skin color is actually governed by 3 gene pairs, right? So how do 3 gene pairs together express themselves or give a combined effect to express for the same phenotype, right? That is what is polygenic inheritance, and it is a trihybrid cross. So with these monohybrid, dihybrid or trihybrid crosses, Mendel was able to deduce the laws of inheritance. Here again, if we see, the law of dominance is there. In F1 generation, we see round and yellow is expressing itself, right? The dominant is expressing while the recessive is not expressing itself. Again, the law of segregation is applicable over here. That means during gamete formation, the allele pairs are separating, and then again during fertilization the allele pairs are coming together, right? So that is how law of segregation is applicable over here. Now there is one more law which was deduced by Mendel, which is applicable only to this dihybrid cross and not to monohybrid cross. Why? Because we are studying here the inheritance pattern of two traits at the same time. Now what is that law? So that law over here is law of independent assortment. What is this law? This law says that when the expression of one gene pair, or when one gene pair is being expressed, it is expressed independently of the other gene pair. How is it proven? We have already seen that there are two traits, two characteristics taken here: seed color and seed shape, right? So expression of seed color has not affected the expression of seed shape, right? How it is proven? It is proven by the appearance of these two recombinant forms. That means in one generation, if round seed shape was with yellow seed color, in the other form we see round has appeared with wrinkled, right? Sorry, round has appeared with green. So this recombinant forms actually prove here that one gene pair, if it is, or one gene, if it is there with expressing itself in one generation with the other gene pair, it's not necessary that in the next generation also the two genes will be together. They may separate independently, right? On that basis, Mendel had deduced this law of independent assortment, and it says that one gene pair expresses itself independently of the other gene pair. You can also use the word assort itself, right, of the other gene pair, right? So as I have told you, because law of independent assortment will be only applicable to dihybrid cross. Why? Because here expression of two gene pairs is being considered at the same time, right? It is not applicable to monohybrid cross, because monohybrid cross we know is the expression of, or the inheritance pattern talking about the inheritance pattern which talks about inheritance of only one gene or one characteristic at a time. Okay. Now next we will talk about deviation from Mendelism. Till now or so far we have studied that what Mendel worked upon, or the traits Mendel worked upon, the plant Mendel worked upon, and on the basis of that the laws he had deduced. Right now the scientists of the at the time of Mendel, many of them were disagreeable with Mendel was talking about. Why? Because they had identified some deviations which Mendel could not identify, right? So those deviations were, the first deviation that we will talk about is incomplete dominance. Mendel had so far only spoken about dominance, or the dominant trait, that is the trait which is expressing itself in every generation. So what is this deviation about, incomplete dominance? Right, certain scientists had identified in the flower Antirrhinum majus. I'm first taking the examples here, right? and there is one more flower, mirabilis. So in these examples, what was observed that if red flower, let us take the genotype for red, capital RR, was crossed with white flower, that is the genotype is small rr in the parental generation. So in the F1 generation, the trait that appeared was all pink flowers. Now what do we see? We see a third variable form here in F1 generation. Although what Mendel studied was that out of the two contrasting form, one is going to express itself in the F1 generation and the other is not expressing. But what do we see here? We see a third form of trait in this F1 generation, that is a pink flower. So how did this pink flower came into being? But before we talk about that, we'll first see what happens when again this flower is self-crossed, because we know that Mendel always self-crosses F1 generation. So if we self-cross the pink flower with another pink flower and we see the Punnett square result, so it is capital RR is for red, then capital R small r is for pink, again one capital R small r, another pink, and then small r is white. So by self-crossing the F1 generation pink flower, the F2 generation result that we get is, we are getting one part red flower, then we are getting 2 part the hybrid flowers, that is pink, and we are getting again 1 part the white flower. So what do we see here? We see here a new combination coming into being and new proportions coming into being. If we compare it with what Mendel had deduced in the F2 generation result, we got 3:1 phenotypic ratio. But here what are we getting? If we see the phenotypic ratio, we have 1 part red, we have 2 part pink, and we have 1 part white. And if we see the genotypic ratio, again we have 1 part capital RR, 2 part is capital R small r, and 1 part is again small r. So what do we see? We get both genotypic as well as phenotypic ratio the same. Okay, both the ratios are in 1:2:1, similar ratios, right? So what is this talking about? In F1 generation, this new trait pink flower is not due to combination or mixing of the red with white. Instead, it is because of the incomplete expression of the dominant phenotype. Right? So what do we see? That incomplete expression of dominant phenotype in the F1 generation is getting a new phenotypic expression, right? Yeah. Now see here. Now with the self-crossing of the pink flower, what do we get? Self-crossing of the pink flower is helping us yield again the parental forms red and white. So this actually proves that it was not a blending of the two forms of the parental generation. Why? Because the gene still restores the identity and we are getting back the parental forms in F2 generation. So what could have been the probable cause of this new variable form, that is the pink color flower in F1 generation? It was mainly because of incomplete expression of the dominant allele. So this is what is a deviation with what Mendel had spoken about. Mendel said that the dominant form is expressing itself again and again in every successive generation, while the recessive, it remains masked in every generation, or it is expressing itself in few generations, right? So we see here this incomplete expression may also occur in certain traits with certain organisms, right? I've already mentioned it is incomplete expression of the dominant phenotype, which is getting a variable trait. So this is what has been identified this in these plants, Antirrhinum majus, also called as the 4 o'clock plant. Antirrhinum majus is the snapdragon, also called as the snapdragon, and Mirabilis jalapa is the 4 o'clock plant. Right, so with these two plant forms, this incomplete expression was identified with F1 generation, right? Now the next one more deviation we would talk about, right, and that is another variable deviation that we will talk about, or deviation from Mendelism we will talk about, is codominance. Now, the word co means together, and dominance is, we already know, the expression of the dominant trait, that is the trait which is expressing itself again and again, right? So codominance over here is taking an example of human blood group first. Right, in human blood group, we have heard about the AB and O type of blood group, right? These are the 4 phenotypic combinations of the blood group. Everyone has heard about, right? Now, what is the basis? First, we will talk about the genetic basis of this blood group before we move on to codominance. The genetic basis is actually a particular gene, I gene, that is responsible for a phenotype that is a sugar coat on RBC. Let us assume this I gene is responsible for a sugar coat, a particular sugar coat on RBC, and this I gene has 3 variable allelic forms. It has IA. IA is responsible for A type of sugar. Sugar here, it is a polysaccharide coat, okay? Then IB, which is B type of sugar. I mean, these are the same polysaccharide with little difference in their molecular structure. Then there is one small I allele. Now this small I allele means there is no sugar coat at all. There are certain individuals on the RBCs of whom there is no sugar coat. So that is because of this small I allele. Since it is represented as small I, so we can make it out that it could be probably the recessive form. Right. Now these 3 allelic combinations, so far we had studied that every characteristic, or as per Mendel had spoken, that every characteristic is being governed by only 2 alleles. But here what do we notice? There is a 3rd allele, right? So for a particular characteristic, there could be more than 2 alleles governing the trait in the population of that organism. So in the human population, we see that there are 3 alleles responsible for this sugar coat on RBC, which is responsible for 4 type of blood groups, right? Now, since we know that the chromosomes occur in pair, and hence, and the genes are located on chromosomes, so gene also occur in pair, right? So in an individual, there is a possibility that only out of the 3, 2 alleles could be present at a time, right? So according to the gene pair, if we see what could be the probable genotypic combinations formed, if this IA is in homozygous form. It could be IEA, right? Acha, before we begin with this genotypic combination, one thing I would like to tell you that here IEA and IB, both these allelic forms, IEA and IB, are dominant, while this small I is recessive. So keeping this in mind, we will find out the possible combinations of homozygous and heterozygous pairs that are probably existing. So if this IEA is in the homozygous form, IEA, then it will give the phenotype A blood group, right? Because we know both IEA alleles are dominant. And now if this IEA makes a combination with this recessive allele, IEA small I, we know that the dominant rules. So again the individual will be of A blood group. Right. Now let us see with this IB combination. If IB is in its homozygous form, individual will be B blood group. And if IB is in the heterozygous form, again individual will be B blood group. Because again we have already mentioned that IB is dominant while small I is recessive, right? Now there could be a case where IA and IB, they both can occur together. Now what will be the case? Because IA, IB both are dominant. So this is a new combination over here where two dominant alleles are going to come together. This is where the phenomena of codominance is applicable. When two dominant alleles are expressing itself together and giving a phenotypic combination. So the individual happens to be of AB blood group over here. Why? Because two dominant alleles are pairing together over here, right? Now we talk about the homozygous expression of the recessive allele. If this happens to be there, small I, which has no sugar coat, then the individual happens to be of O blood group, right? Now, this A type of sugar, we also call it as the antigen, right? Since A antigen is due to A type of sugar, B antigen due to B type of sugar, and I has no sugar coat, that means no antigen at all. What does that tells us? That tells us that, right, and a person with A blood group, right, can give blood to or transfuse blood to people with A blood group, right, can transfuse blood to people with AB blood group. Why? Because AB also has A antigen here, A blood group has A antigen here, and since O blood group has no antigen here, so if person with A blood group will give blood to O blood group people, there will be antibodies produced against the A blood group, because individual with O blood group will not identify this antigen, right? So there could be antigen antibody reaction taking place. But in case if O blood group gives blood to A blood group, because O blood group has no antigen, right? So A blood group will not identify any antigen, it will easily accept the O blood group. That is why O blood group individual can donate blood to A individual. No antigen antibody reaction will take place, right? In the same manner, if the individual is with B blood group, he can give blood to B blood group, also can give blood to AB blood group, but he cannot give blood to O blood group. But O blood group individual can give blood to equally B blood group, because there is no antigen present here, so no reaction over here. That is one thing. And now if we see the case of AB blood group, AB blood group is taking blood from both A and B, but it cannot give blood to either of the AB. Why? Because it also has the other contrasting antigen. If it will give blood to A individual, then antibodies for B blood group will be produced, because it has got this B antigen in it. If it will give blood to B blood group, then an antibody against A will be produced. So AB can take the blood from A and B blood group people, but it cannot give blood to A or B blood group people. So that is why we also call AB blood group as universal recipient. They can only take, they cannot give. While we have already discussed that O blood group can give blood to all forms. They are universal donors. Because they do not. What is the genetics behind? Because O blood group has no antigen, no sugar coat. So they will not produce any antibody. All right, so we see that O blood group is a universal donor. Why? Because it has got no sugar coat, right? So it can donate blood to every blood group forms, other blood group forms. It can donate blood to A blood group as well as B as well as AB, right? Now getting back to this phenomena of codominance, we have seen here that IA, IB, both the alleles are occurring over here in ABO blood group as AB blood group. Two dominant alleles occurring together, right? They form the phenomena of codominance. And one more phenomena is being formed over here. I have already told that multiple alleles, that is more than one type of allele. See, we see here three variable forms of allele which are responsible for the same phenotype. So far, what Mendel told, it was only two contrasting form of alleles or two similar form of allele responsible for the same characteristic. But here we see that there are more than two alleles responsible for the same characteristic. Hence, one more phenomena is formed over here, that is called as multiple allelism. Okay, that is more than, I would write here, more than two alleles responsible for same phenotype. Right. So here in the human blood group, we are finding both the concepts, that is multiple allelism as codominant and as well as codominance. Both of them are ruling here in ABO blood group, right? Now, next we talk about the concept of dominance. We had already compared dominance with codominance and we had compared it with incomplete dominance. Incomplete dominance, codominance, they are both deviations from dominance. But why? What is the reason why Mendel had only said that out of the contrasting form, one is dominant, other is recessive, but he could not give any substantial reason because he had no idea so far about gene or genetic basis. But his contemporary scientist, right, Cermak, Correns and D. Rice, three scientists, you will find these names in NCERT, Cermak, Correns and D. Rice. They had actually given the proof, they had actually experimentally proved why one particular allele is dominant while the other is recessive, and they had worked upon certain plants and certain other organisms to prove the concept of dominance. So now here we will take up concept of dominance. To explain this concept, I will be taking the example of enzyme. We already know enzymes are biocatalysts which themselves do not take part in the reaction, but they trigger the rate of reaction. So let us talk about a particular gene which is responsible or which is coding for an enzyme, right? So there could be three probable reasons, right? If the gene or the allele is synthesizing or responsible for a normal enzyme, that means this gene is mainly coding for a normal enzyme. The enzyme is functional. Normal enzyme means it is a functional enzyme, right? It is efficient or it is functional. That could be one reason. Now, if that gene is not able to synthesize a complete normal enzyme, but it is synthesizing a less efficient enzyme, or if that gene undergoes modification to such a level. Modification, if we say gene modification, in other words, is mutation, right? So due to certain environmental reasons or due to certain genetic reasons, right? Certain disorders which may appear in the DNA at the time of DNA replication. You may be familiar with DNA replication that occurs during the interphase stage of cell division. During that phase, if in case an error creeps in during replication, that may lead to evolution in the that may lead to modification or mutation in the gene. So if this gene or the allele, it undergoes modification, right? So I am writing here modified allele, right? And this modified allele is producing a non-functional enzyme, or we can in other words say no enzyme at all. It is that the gene is not responsible for any enzyme. Okay, there could be three probable reasons, right? If that gene is totally functional, right, it is synthesizing or it is responsible for producing a normal enzyme. If that gene undergoes slight modification, it could lead to formation of a less efficient enzyme. This is also a kind of modification, right? And if it goes totally modified or totally mutated, it will form a non-functional enzyme. So there could be three probable conditions due to which one particular, for example, if we say here the normal enzyme, this normal enzyme is the dominant form, right, which is going to express itself again and again, right? And while the modified allelic form, which could be either a less efficient enzyme or a non-functional enzyme, right, it could be responsible for the recessive trait. So we see here that the dominant one is the one, the dominant allele or gene is the one which is totally functional or which is a normal allele. That is, that allele is going to give it expression completely. That expression could be in form of a protein or an enzyme or any other physiological function. Okay. While if it undergoes modification or mutation for any reason, right, it could lead to production of a less efficient enzyme or a non-functional enzyme. So that non-functional or less efficient enzyme could be the probable reason for the occurrence of the recessive allele. So we see here that the concept of dominance explains why one allele is dominant while the other allele is recessive, right? So the dominant is always happens to be a normal allele and recessive is a modified form. Right. So we see here that hence it is proved that Mendel had spoken about dominance and recessive forms of the gene, right, which are proven here due to the functionality or the non-functionality of a particular allele or a gene, right. Now next we talk about the chromosome and gene behavior or the parallel behavior between chromosomes and genes. This was worked upon by Thomas Hunt Morgan. Morgan had actually studied the chromosomal behavior. He had studied it in this fruit fly, Drosophila melanogaster. Also called as the fruit fly. So he had worked in the laboratory with this Drosophila melanogaster. Why did he choose Drosophila? The reason being Again, it could yield results in 2 weeks. It could be grown in, I will write here results in, since Drosophila quickly multiplies and yields results in 2 weeks only, that is why he could easily get the result to experimentally observe and study about them, right? Then it could be grown in synthetic medium in lab. Synthetic medium over here refers to the food or the kind of nutrition. Generally, banana is used as a nutrient here to grow Drosophilas in labs. Grown in synthetic medium in labs, right? So basically this Morgan had actually experimentally proved the chromosome behavior. Now next we talk about this parallel behavior between chromosome and genes. We already know that the chromosomes, they occur in pair. Right? Since chromosomes occur in pair and the genes are located on chromosomes, so we can say that the genes also occur in pair. Now during gamete formation, chromosome pair, we can say one chromosome pair segregate or separate of other pair. Now in the same manner, if we see the gene pairs, so we can say here one gene pair separates or segregate independently of other pair. Right? Since genes are located, now we see here that the gene pairs for the same trait are located in the same position. This position is known as the locus or the loci. Loci plural, locus singular. Right? So this gene position or the locus of the gene pair is the same for the same allelic forms which are responsible or ruling the same characteristic. It could be the homozygous form or it could be the heterozygous form, right? They will occupy the same position, and that is how these position of the gene also tells us about the homology or the similarity between this chromosome pair. How do we identify homologous chromosome pair? It is because of the same shape, size and the gene locus of the alleles present on the chromosomal pair. That tells us about the homologous chromosomal pair. Now we know that the homologous chromosome pair, since they separate during gamete formation, and the gene pair hence will also separate during gamete formation. If you remember, during meiosis 1 leads to separation of homologous pair. That means these two chromosomes will separate during meiosis 1. Meiosis 1, anaphase 1. We already know that anaphase 1 is the main phase. This is mentioned in NCERT that meiosis 1, anaphase 1 is the stage where the homologous chromosomes separate from each other. So separation of homologous chromosomal pair occurring during meiosis 1 and anaphase 1. And during meiosis 2, anaphase 2, since meiosis 2 we know is as same as mitosis, so the chromatids, these chromatids will separate. We know that each chromatid is equivalent to 1 DNA. So the two chromatids are the two DNA copies in the same chromosome. So the chromatids separate during M2 phase, right? So that is how Morgan, working with Drosophila, had studied this chromosomal behavior, and hence we came to know about the parallel behavior between genes and chromosomes. All right, so now see, with this, Morgan has also spoken about Drosophila melanogaster. The chromosome study of Drosophila melanogaster tells us that there is male heterogamety, whereas female homogamety. As in human beings, we know it is XX is female homogamety and XY is male heterogamety. So this kind of behavior we also identify in Drosophila. All right, so with this we come to an end with this class. Thank you.